book nibbles. Big ideas, small bites. Gatherings are such a natural part of human life that most of us rarely stop to question them. We meet for birthdays, holidays, weddings, office conferences, community fundraisers, Sunday dinners, and countless other occasions. Because they feel ordinary, we often default to the same formats, the same traditions, the same scripts, assuming that if we follow convention the gathering will succeed. Priya Parker challenges this assumption, arguing that gatherings are not simply logistical events but opportunities to shape meaning, connection, and transformation. She insists that every gathering, whether large or small, formal or informal, has the potential to be profound, but only if we approach it with intention. This is the heart of her book. Gatherings matter, and how we design and host them determines whether they are forgettable or unforgettable, shallow or deeply resonant. Parker begins with the provocative idea that most gatherings fail not because the host is incompetent or the guests are boring, but because the purpose is fuzzy. Too many gatherings are convened out of habit. Friday happy hours because that's what coworkers do, a birthday party with cake and candles because that's what birthdays require, or a networking event where people exchange business cards without real conversation. These events often feel perfunctory because no one has articulated why they are happening. Parker urges us to resist defaulting to tradition and instead to ask, what is the purpose here? A good gathering, she says, is less about the form and more about the why. For instance, instead of throwing a generic dinner party, perhaps the purpose is to bring together old friends who haven't connected in years, or to introduce colleagues from different fields so that cross-pollination of ideas might happen. With clarity of purpose, the choices about who to invite, what to serve, and how to structure the evening fall into place. She illustrates this with countless examples. One story that stands out is about a dinner where the host invited guests not simply to eat but to share personal stories about moments when they had felt like outsiders. The purpose was to foster empathy and authenticity among people who otherwise might have engaged in superficial small talk. Because the purpose was clear, the host curated the guest list with care, set a tone that encouraged vulnerability, and created a structure where sharing was possible. The gathering was memorable not because the food was exceptional, but because the design served the deeper purpose of connection. Purpose is not just a guiding principle for choosing what to do. It also requires excluding what does not serve the gathering. Parker emphasizes the importance of what she calls generous exclusion. Too many hosts feel guilty about leaving people out, assuming inclusivity is always best. But she argues that when a gathering tries to serve everyone, it serves no one well. For example, if the purpose is to brainstorm bold ideas for a new business strategy, including people who are resistant to change will dilute the energy. Exclusion in this sense is not mean-spirited but purposeful. It protects the integrity of the gathering's aim. This means we must be brave enough to decide who belongs and who does not, based on the purpose we've defined. Another trap gatherings fall into is over-reliance on etiquette or tradition. Parker points out that etiquette is often about preserving the status quo and avoiding discomfort. But meaningful gatherings sometimes require breaking the rules of politeness. For instance, a wedding doesn't need to include the bouquet toss just because that's what weddings have always done. If the couple's purpose is to honor their closest community, they might instead choose to have guests share stories of how they've supported one another in difficult times. By bending or even discarding tradition, gatherings can become truer reflections of the people involved. Once purpose and people are chosen with intention, the role of the host becomes crucial. Parker insists that good hosts must embrace their authority rather than pretend everyone is equal in shaping the event. Too often, hosts abdicate responsibility, thinking it is more democratic to let the group set the tone. But without strong, caring leadership, gatherings can drift or be dominated by louder voices. A good host, she explains, is like a steward who creates a container for the experience, guiding people gently but firmly so that the purpose can be fulfilled. This means setting boundaries, enforcing rules, and sometimes even stepping in to redirect energy. A story she recounts is of a facilitator who, during a heated discussion, paused the conversation and asked participants to reflect silently before continuing. That small act of stewardship shifted the tone and allowed the group to re-engage constructively. The opening of a gathering is especially vital. Parker describes it as setting the temperature of the room. Too often, events begin with logistical housekeeping, where the bathrooms are, what time lunch will be served, when the next coffee break happens. These details, while necessary, squander the opportunity to create an emotional entry point. Instead, she argues, openings should immediately signal the purpose and draw people into the shared experience. At a conference, this might mean beginning not with a keynote but with a powerful question that gets people talking right away. At a dinner, it might mean inviting each person to share why they came. These openings set the tone for depth rather than small talk. Equally important is the closing. Many gatherings fizzle out because the ending is treated casually. People trickle out, the host thanks them briefly, and that's it. Parker believes closings should be as intentional as openings. A strong ending provides a sense of completion and meaning. She shares the example of a dinner where the host asked each guest, before leaving, to share one thing they were taking away from the evening. This ritual of reflection gave the gathering a sense of closure and ensured that its impact extended beyond the event itself. Closings, Parker notes, are opportunities to frame the gathering's significance and to send people back into their lives changed in some way. Throughout the book, Parker challenges us to recognize that gatherings are not just social niceties but opportunities to create worlds. Every detail communicates something, whether or not we realize it. The seating arrangement, the way guests are greeted, the choice of music, the timing of transitions, all of these can reinforce or undermine the purpose. She describes how, at one retreat, the organizers placed chairs in a circle rather than rows. That simple change shifted the dynamic from passive listening to active participation. The form of the gathering should serve its function. Another powerful insight Parker offers is about the role of heat. By heat, she means the energy that comes from engaging with what really matters, even if it feels uncomfortable. Too many gatherings avoid heat in the name of harmony, but in doing so, they sacrifice meaning. She gives the example of a family meeting where difficult issues, like financial responsibilities or unresolved conflicts, were avoided in favor of safe topics. The result was that the gathering felt hollow. In contrast, when groups dare to step into heat, they access authenticity and transformation. The key is for the host to regulate the heat, raising it enough to foster depth but not so much that it becomes destructive. Parker also emphasizes the importance of designing gatherings with active participation rather than passive consumption. Too often, events are structured like performances, where the many watch the few. But gatherings come alive when everyone is engaged. This might mean breaking large groups into smaller circles for discussion, inviting personal storytelling, or designing games and activities that connect people. She highlights how participation transforms guests from spectators into co-creators of the experience. She also explores the idea of alternative worlds. Gatherings, she suggests, are temporary universes with their own rules and norms. By designing these worlds intentionally, we can liberate people from the constraints of everyday life. At a masquerade party, for example, the anonymity of masks might allow guests to express parts of themselves usually hidden. At a retreat, a no-phones rule might free people from constant distraction. Creating an alternative world gives people permission to behave differently, to step into roles they wouldn't ordinarily play, and to experience themselves anew. The stories Parker shares throughout the book range from weddings to political summits, dinner parties to funerals, board meetings to book clubs. Each illustrates a different principle but all reinforce the central theme. Gatherings matter when they are purposeful, intentional, and well-stewarded. One memorable story is of a South African gathering after apartheid where people shared testimonies of pain and reconciliation. The design of that gathering, its rules, its rituals, its facilitators, allowed participants to engage with deep truth and move toward healing. It shows the profound stakes gatherings can have, far beyond casual socializing. Even in lighter contexts, the principles apply. Parker recounts hosting a small dinner where the guests were instructed to leave their shoes at the door and put on slippers provided by the host. This small act signaled that they were entering a different kind of space, one of intimacy and comfort. The evening unfolded with unusual openness precisely because the gathering had been designed to create that atmosphere. At the core of Parker's philosophy is the belief that gatherings are about people, not things. Too often we obsess about the menu, the decorations, the playlist, or the swag bags. While these can enhance the experience, they are not the essence. The essence is the connection among people and the meaning they create together. When we remember this, we free ourselves from the pressure of perfectionism in logistics and focus instead on crafting experiences that matter. As the book draws to a close, Parker circles back to the fundamental message. Gatherings are opportunities to shape the way we relate to one another and to the world. In a time when people are often isolated, distracted, or overwhelmed, intentional gatherings can provide a sense of belonging and purpose. They can heal divisions, spark creativity, and remind us of our shared humanity. But this doesn't happen automatically. It requires thought, courage, and creativity from those who convene. Ultimately, Parker empowers us to see ourselves not just as hosts but as gatherers, people with the power to create meaningful human experiences. She encourages us to reject autopilot, to question tradition, to embrace purpose, and to design with care. Whether we are planning a birthday party, a business retreat, a memorial service, or a neighborhood meeting, we have the opportunity to transform what might have been routine into something memorable and significant. Her advice is practical but also deeply philosophical. Gatherings are not just events but expressions of values. When we gather with intention, we live out our vision of what matters: community, honesty, love, justice, creativity. Each gathering is a chance to embody those values in real time with real people, in ways that ripple outward into the rest of life. By the end of the book, readers feel both challenged and inspired. The challenge is to resist the easy path of default gatherings and to take responsibility for shaping them with care. The inspiration is the realization that every gathering, no matter how small, can be a work of art. A Tuesday night dinner with friends can be transformative. A team meeting can shift the culture of a workplace. A wedding can tell the true story of a couple's love. A memorial can help a community grieve and heal. These are not just social occasions. They are opportunities to create meaning. Priya Parker's The Art of Gathering is ultimately a manifesto for reclaiming the power of how we come together. In a fragmented world, where loneliness is common and meaningful connection rare, her insights are not just useful but urgent. She reminds us that gatherings are one of the most powerful tools we have for shaping culture, building relationships, and making sense of our lives. They are where we find belonging, where we are seen, where we grow. And when designed with care, they are where we experience the best of what it means to be human. And that's it. Priya Parker's The Art of Gathering. Thanks for listening to Book Nibbles. If you enjoyed this bite-sized book, don't forget to subscribe for more quick, insightful summaries. See you in the next nibble.